Hey y'all, I'm Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. If you've ever felt confused, overwhelmed, or just plain frustrated at the 504 IEP table, you are in the right place. Every week, I'm breaking down the rules, the rights, and the realities of special education so you can walk into meetings informed, empowered, and ready to make real change. And whether you're a parent, a teacher, an advocate, a school-based member, or somebody who's just trying to do right by a student, this podcast gives you straight talk, real answers, and tools that you can use immediately. I'm not here to play politics. I'm not here to play sides. I'm here to train people who sit at the table and teach you how to follow the law, ask the right questions, and protect the rights of students. So go ahead and hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change, we're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. I mean, what would it be like if you actually had resources, strategies, and ways to mitigate the impact of ADHD in your kiddo, in your classroom, or in you? And so today we're super happy to have the expert in that, Michael McLeod. And I am going to let him introduce himself because I'm going to mess up his bio, which is super long. But Michael, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, thanks so much for having me. This is such a privilege. Karen and I met in Boston at a great conference, and it was love at first sight, in my personal opinion. Her and I are on the exact same wavelength in terms of advocating for those who have difficulty advocating. Special education students, parents of students with kids with various disabilities. And that's really my mission statement of life, and it's the same as Karen. So this is the first of many great things the two of us will do together to help change the world and improve the quality of life for others. So my name is Michael McLeod. I'm an ADHD and executive functioning specialist. I began my career as a speech and language pathologist, and I had such an incredible opportunity to work with this great organization known as the Focus Foundation. And I was just with them a couple of days ago in Annapolis, Maryland for their annual conference, an incredible group. And I worked with so many different boys and girls with ADHD. And I learned very quickly that there's very little out there for these kids in terms of things that were actually improving long-term outcomes. All these different parents that I was interacting with, they were spending thousands of dollars on various therapies and counseling and all these different things, thousands of dollars, thousands of hours, and nothing really was making these skills stick. It wasn't making these kids more employable. It wasn't helping them make more friends. It wasn't helping them go to college and be successful. So from all that work there, I took a very deep dive into the incredible work of Dr. Russell Barkley, Sarah Ward, Kristen Jacobson, Ryan Wexelblatt, Dr. George McCloskey, Dr. Russell Barkley especially, and I developed the GrowNOW internal skills model. We did a year-long research study on it, and here we are. And since 2016, GrowNOW has worked with close to 3,000 different families all around the world, providing executive functioning internal skills training to the students, as well as parent training. And I also travel the country and internationally doing professional development for schools, because as all you parents here know today, teachers do not get training on ADHD and executive function as part of their master's level training. They have to bring someone like me in for PD. So that's all I do. So last week I was in Dallas, Texas, Annapolis, Maryland, Syracuse, New York, and a lot more travel coming up. Hopefully some with Karen.
Absolutely. You're not going to get rid of me that easy.
That's right.
So, one of the things I've said for years is the two most marginalized and discriminated students that I serve with one of the 13 federal eligibilities under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is number one, Down syndrome. And that is tragic because we think that we know things because we can see somebody's differences. But number two, probably really to a wider level because of the continuum that is ADHD, is ADHD. We don't, and I stand on this, August of 2026, probably will stand on it in 30 years. We don't believe in ADHD. We don't think it's really a thing. We think that you're a terrible person. We think that you don't make your kid do homework. We think all these things. And then if we do believe it, kind of, sort of, a little bit, there are these things that they have called doctors. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
They give you these pills and then you won't have ADHD. Now, if you have ADHD, we'll give you these pills and they work, but they don't work as good over time. How about we just extend it? How about we just, it doesn't matter that you have a 7-year-old liver. And so for me, on the outside looking in, I think what I see before I even got into this space is that people that have ADHD have these super high competencies, right? And it's not a preferred interest, right? I prefer, making, robots versus, doing the dishes. They have these sort of outlier, almost savant skills when they are highly focused at something that they are good at and gifted in and celebrated in. And so when you're on the outside in, and I used to be in that place, it's like, well, if you did it Thursday, Michael, why can't you do it Friday? Like, just did it yesterday. And so I'm not a doctor, I'm nobody special. But if in layman's terms, that's one of the things I love about you is you talk about really high level information instead of making people go, oh, it's even worse than I thought. But you give them actions and steps and equip them. But just from a why perspective, and we've all been there, we all have biases. Why do you think that parents, professionals, people um, get frustrated with individuals with ADHD?
Because at the end of the day, we have to, ADHD is far too misunderstood. Another thing that causes individuals to have that same reaction you just had of you're a horrible person, you don't discipline your child, you're a permissive parent, you're just lazy. How often are we calling ADHD kids lazy and disinterested and all these different things? In so many different ways, ADHD kids are a victim. They're a victim of big tech's predatory marketing. Here we are in 2026. You can't discuss ADHD without also discussing an incredibly debilitating screen addiction. And who's the biggest victim of ed tech taking over schools and the one-to-one laptops? And we're expecting ADHD kids to sit back in class and listen to a lecture on the periodic table and resist the internet in front of them. Of course, they're going to hack the Chromebook and start playing Minecraft in class and watching YouTube in class. And the principals and the superintendents dare say, oh, your son needs to learn the skills to resist. He has to learn to resist and still pay attention. That's not happening because adults can't even do that with their fully developed brains. So overall, all of this information about ADHD is not an attention disorder. ADHD is a disorder of executive functions. And executive functions are the greatest predictor of success for human beings. You need executive functioning first before you're able to learn, before you're able to even be successful at school. And we're having kids show up to these ridiculous, kindergarten of today looks like the second, third grade of 20 years ago. And we're asking them to sit and take notes and listen with all this technology in front of them. They don't have the self-regulation skills to learn in the first place. And with ADHD, it's so much inconsistency. Every day is like Groundhog's Day. That's how I describe ADHD parenting. Every day is Groundhog's Day, the same fight, the same argument, the same negotiation, the same screen time battle. And we as the adults are expecting them to show up and be regulated enough to learn, but that's the deficit in the first place.
Right. So good. And so, one of the things that I see is that there are medications. And listen, you should do whatever is best for your family. I'm going to do what's best for my family. If there have been seasons in my life that I needed medication and took it, absolutely. And if there was a new season, I would take that. But when we sit, Michael, at a table, I don't care if your kid is 7 or 17, and we tell the parents, is is he taking medicine for that? Like, have you reached out to a doctor? Like, they're so offended that we wouldn't do that. That is somebody's personal choice. And even if the medicine was beneficial, not if it worked, right? Words are everything. It was beneficial, and you can have the greatest medicine and the great system in the world, and it worked perfectly. Does it make your ADHD go away?
It does not. There's the old saying, pills don't teach skills. Medication is safe, it is effective, it is evidence-based, sure. But, once again, it is a family choice. The number one piece of advice I always give parents when they ask me the big medication question is never get any medication advice from parent Facebook groups. Do not go onto social media and get information about a medication. Please speak to a licensed physician who you know personally. But at the end of the day, they can be on the best med, the best dosage, but if they're still playing Xbox, Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, scrolling 6, 7, 8 hours a day, what's that medication doing? We are human beings. We are what we most continually do. if your child is spending the majority of their day in the virtual world, they're going to have useless virtual world skills. Executive functions, life's most predictable success skill, are real world independent skills. ADHD is all about this child is prompt dependent. They do nothing without a million reminders, a million prompts. This is why every single ADHD parent lives under the mindset, nothing gets done unless I step in. I have to follow them around in the morning. I have to follow them around at night. I have to sit with them while they do homework. 3-hour fight over 10 minutes of homework. Sure, they can be on all the meds, but if their life is the virtual world, you're going to see a lot more success by doing a screen detox and screen elimination first. But that's all based on the unique individual.
Right. And so for me, because I'm a little bossy when I'm awake, when I'm asleep too. So when I have kiddos, and I'm not nearly as smart as everybody else, and we've known for 40 years that the American Pediatric Association has said 40 years ago, it is not recommended or good that a minor looks at a screen for more than 60 minutes a day. I think we weren't talking about the iPhone 97 then. We were talking about, the TV with the 3 stations, right? And so much is going on in there. And when you have an executive functioning deficit, you have to learn that skills with other humans. It's the weirdest thing, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to, and I think the tide is turning a little bit. I was with somebody a couple days ago, and they said that's why kids don't make eye contact. And we were just checking out a department store, and I mean, 6, 5, 4. Everybody has grandma, mama's cell phone, and just they're threatening them that they can't watch anything. Like, you're not here. If you are looking at a phone, I mean, you and I have done this before. You ever been like looking at something, you look up and it's like, oh, the flight landed. It's 2 hours because we're just scrolling. But at least you and I know how to recover from that because we're adults, right?
Yes.
We've learned skills. And so as an advocate, when that is in their paperwork, I promise you, I take that out of their paperwork. This joy that we got from all of the computer guys giving us one-to-one computers, that's segregation, right? It is back to this device is divisive and divisive. And so for an advocate, I can take that out of their paperwork and make them have a different product, right? As our friend Nick Hutchison says, paper, books, print.
You got it.
Kind of speak to a parent that, hey, their kiddo has ADHD, but they don't rise to the level of needing, a 504 and IEP. How would you support them in saying, hey, I don't want my kiddo staring their face in front of any computer all day long?
That's exactly it. And this is exactly why I say our ADHD youth are the biggest victims of big tech's predatory marketing. And all of that ed tech at school is big tech. My good friend Emily Churkin, the screen time consultant, she says ed tech is just big tech in a sweater vest. They've just totally just reinvented themselves as helping kids. But it's nonsense. It's all, YouTube has taken over the American classroom. And who owns YouTube? Google. Who creates the Chromebooks? Google. What we have to realize here is we are in the attention economy, and it's all these free to download things. Snapchat, YouTube, Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft. It's free to download. Anytime something is free to download, your child is the product because they're making their trillions of dollars by how many minutes, how many hours your child's spending on it. And they realized, hey, wait a second, kids are at school for 8 hours a day. That's a great time to get them on YouTube, isn't it? And throw ads in their face and make some more money and build this attention economy. So I do a lot of work with Andy Liddell from the EdTech law firm, just really great individuals to advocate for kids to get rid of that laptop. Paper and pen and paper and pencil education was the best thing. Just like Karen said, we're adults. The brain develops until 30 years old. That's when we're at our full level of cognition. And I can almost guarantee you, of all the hundreds of you who are dedicating your Sunday evening to be with us, your phone's probably had a pretty negative impact on your life. And you have a fully developed brain. It's the first thing you grab when you wake up. It's the last thing you look at before you go to sleep. And you're grabbing it at every single red light. And yet we still tell ourselves, why can't my child just gain the skills to balance his screen use? Why can't he have his phone and still do homework and still want to go out and join clubs, sports, and activities and still want to do these things. We're asking our teenagers to do things that we can't even do as adults. And it's just not going to happen. Every single parent has this pipe dream of why can't my child have a balance? It's not going to happen. In this world today, the greatest advantage that you can give your child is to not buy them a phone and give them as little screen time as possible. You are setting them up for so much future success if you do not allow them to get screen addicted before 18 years old.
Right, that's so good. So there's a thing that you guys can still do. Some of you have to search it up, but there are these things called landlines, and I
Oh
mean you
yeah.
probably haven't heard about them. I have one in my home because I participate sometimes in due process hearings and federal um, um, investigations. And when a hearing officer or a federal attorney calls, you better pick up, right? And I've got it because I can't have the Wi-Fi down or whatever. And so if your whole premise is mom and dad, well, I have to have the phone as an adult so that people can get a hold of me. There you go. There you go. Go ahead and get your whole landline tomorrow. You can get one ever matches your undertones. I have one in my house. But we are repeaters, right? We humans model. And so I often look around, and Michael, you know, I've talked about this at a restaurant, and I'm like, I don't know why they came inside. Like, I have no idea why the four of them came inside. Like, you could have just sat in your car, right? And
Yeah.
you know, everywhere is there free Wi-Fi everywhere. Free. I mean, it's just remember years ago, like you had to, they wouldn't let you on the Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi for the Wi-Fi. There's Wi-Fi on planes now, right? It's like, and so talk about how we all have a responsibility in the output and the outcomes of our children. You talked about parents. How do they go to the principal or whatever and just say, I am not going to be in agreement with this district initiative, this district expectation, and the lie, if you're listening, the lie that every kid is doing it, I promise you, you're wrong. Really? A child that's reading Braille is watching a math video in Dreambox? And so we have to stop being cheap. These are our children, and what we do right now certainly is going to set them up for the next 80 years, right? And so how would you approach that if you were going into school and it was one of your kiddos and they said, well, that's what we're doing here at Yahoo Independent School District, and that's a directive from the district? What would you say?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's always going to be about strength in numbers. I can almost guarantee you, you are not the only parent dealing with this in your neighborhood, in your child's school district. Parents everywhere just cannot stand that Chromebook coming home. My heart goes out to the parents out there who have fought the fight, never bought their kid a phone, never bought an Xbox, never let them get deep into Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft. And then all of a sudden, their taxpayer dollars, all of a sudden their kid comes home with a Chromebook, and now the school has created an addict, and the child goes upstairs. Oh, mom, I'm doing homework. 3 hours later, no homework is done. They were surfing the web the entire time. God knows what they were doing on that Chromebook. I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of ADHD students who have had the police called to the school because of something they're doing on the Chromebook. And it's not their fault. You're giving them open access to the internet. This is what we have to understand as adults. We are giving kids open access to the internet, but we're too scared to send them 2 blocks down the road to go to the store by themselves to go pick up a quart of milk. But we'll give them open access to the internet. The internet is the most unregulated, disgusting thing in the history of human existence. And we're giving kids access to it at school, and the things they're looking at on school grounds, on school Wi-Fi, it's insane. And then we get upset with them for doing it. It's our fault. Kids are dependents. They only have access to what we give them. So when we buy them a phone, when we make the horrible parenting choice to buy our kids a phone, we're giving them access to things they shouldn't have. When we're giving them a Chromebook at school, we're giving them access to things we couldn't have. Us as adults, we can drive, we can drink, we can vote, we can gamble, we can do things that kids should not be able to do. And we have to start adding excessive access to the internet to those things. So, reach out to parents in your neighborhood and storm and get into those school board meetings and advocate for decreased technology. We're seeing it in Utah, in California, in various states. they are significantly decreasing the amount of screen time in the classroom and going back to paper and pen. And those kids are going to see a lot of benefits and be far more prepared for this tech-filled future and college than the kids who have constant Chromebook use.
So good. And probably any of you could reach out to your DOE or SCA, your state education agency, your Department of Education. You can say it's a personal reason and it's a religious reason, it's a moral reason. I don't want my child on that computer. And I'm sure the state will give you language around that, but you do not have to put up with it. You just don't. And we're destroying their ability to be successful adults, right? We're not going to all be staring at a computer. And so tell us, Michael, some of the things that you do when parents have. I've given Billy a cell phone for 10 years and now he's 13. How do I undo that?
Well, the last thing you need to do is start waving the white flag and saying it's too late. This is the reason why parent training is the #1 evidence-based treatment for ADHD and executive functioning, working directly with the parent, directly with the teachers. This whole concept that you can send an ADHD child to go talk to a therapist or go talk to a counselor, then an hour later, they're going to want to be on screens less. They're going to want to curse at mom less. They're going to want to do homework more after talking to someone on a Zoom or in a therapist office, playing games for an hour. That's not going to happen. We have to empower the parents. We're talking about coaching parents to be able to step into their parental authority. Because here's what parents have to realize. Screens make you permissive. Parents who are permissive today are unintentionally permissive. And the definition of permissive parenting is overindulging the child to avoid conflict. And the second you buy them a phone, that becomes the center of their world. And everything else besides that phone becomes one big non-preferred task. And your child's going to act a lot more dysregulated every time you ask them to do a non-screen based task. They're going to start to act like an addict, and that's going to scare you as the parent. And you're going to start overindulging them to avoid conflict. You're going to start walking on eggshells around them. And if I'm being totally honest right now, you're going to start to be scared of your child. Everyone who's listening to this right now, if I were to meet with every single one of you one-on-one and say, look, you need to cancel your child's phone plan right now. Every single one of you, your face would turn ghost white with fear. You would instantly be debilitated with fear. And that's because phones make you scared of your child. So we need to empower you to go back to being a parent. Stop trying to convince your child to be on your screens less. That's a #1 sign. How do I know I'm a permissive parent? What's the telltale sign I've become permissive? You start using the word convince. Can I convince my child to do this? Can I convince my child to do that? You're not a used car salesman. You're a parent. So we need to empower you to make the choices that, yeah, your kid's going to be mad at you for a couple of weeks, but they're eventually going to thank you when they turn 19, 20 years old. So you need to realize we're not going to wave the white flag to big tech. We're not going to give my kid a phone because everyone on the block has a phone. I'm going to do what's best for my child. And I'm telling you, I've been doing this for years. I have never worked with a single family who eliminated screens and ended up regretting it.
So good. So a couple things you're talking. So I live in the great state of Texas and very proud of Texas. We passed no more cell phones for kids in school. Phenomenal.
Texas, let's go. The great state of Houston, right?
I live in the country of Texas, the state of Houston.
There you go.
And I was in a school recently for a different program, and he said, you know what it is? It's so loud in the cafeteria. You're kidding. Remember the cafeteria used to be loud. So they're quicker to turn it around than we are. However, you got to have something to replace that. So do something. Paint rocks, build a garden. You have to do things with kids if you're taking something away from them. And then you have to model the same sort of appropriateness, right? I liken it to, Michael, remember growing up and raising my kids and people, and I'm very strict. I know that's shocking. And I didn't really care what the other parents thought. And I really was the only parent that did let their kids have cell phones. And the parents, this 15 years ago, were horrified of their kids. They would do like this at a football game. I'm like, I don't want to upset him. I'm like, that's called parenting, right? But I liken it to, all 3 of my kids went to the prom. Are you going to let them go to the prom? Yes. Are you going to let them go to the after party? I'm going to give them opportunities to think about that decision, right? And so, well, we get our kids beer and wine and booze for the prom because they're going to do it anyway. And by golly, I'd rather them do it at my house. That is, I think we can agree that's not smart, right? It's not any different with cell phones, right? And so when
It's
you're,
worse with cell phones.
yeah, and so we had the opportunity when Michael was with another team of people, and this doctor was talking about digital dementia, right?
Yep.
And can you go a whole day without picking up your phone, without picking up your phone first? So we did this. Kids didn't do this, and so you can say no and stand on your no, right? Because the benefit they don't know and they can't see. And when Michael said 30 years old, that was stunned me. As somebody who's a mediator for the family courts, we, when we're looking at probate and kids' needs, we don't consider anybody under 22 grown. They're not grown, right? And so one of the things that I say to parents when I have a child on an IEP and they say, well, the regular bus, the answer is no. Even if you don't qualify for the special ed bus, you know why? Because people open their phones and show you the whole world, like every kind of magazine you can ever think of at 7:30. Don't really want my 8-year-old to start that day. And so somebody has to say no, and it's got to be the parent first.
And that's exactly it. And, so often we want to get upset with the school, get upset with the teacher, get upset with the IEP, the 504. But at the end of the day, we, like Karen mentioned, digital dementia, this term brain rot, it's not some catchy, trendy term. It's real. We now know screens negatively impact the white matter, the gray matter, the cortical networks. All of this is real. It's hurting the brain. But the good thing we now know is that with a screen elimination, the brain can go back to normal. But if we're having our kids come home from school and, do homework and then earn their screens and then just earn their screens until bedtime and then go to sleep, that's setting them up for failure the next day. So all of these screens are hardwiring their brain towards instant gratification, making it literally impossible to do things that need delayed gratification. And everything that's worth doing in life is delayed gratification, like the famous marshmallow test, right? That's exactly what it is we have to be able, like all of school, grades, studying, relationships, everything is delayed gratification. But if we're training their brain towards instant gratification, we're setting them up for failure. So all of that screen time parents are giving their kids in the afternoon and evening, we're making it impossible for them to get up on time, get to school on time, sit and pay attention, resist the internet. So it's so easy to blame the teachers for not building relationships, not following this, not teaching the right way. If there's excessive screen time in the home and then we send them to school the next day, their brain can't sit and listen to a boring lecture. They can't sit and have a back and forth dialogue because their brain is hardwired towards this. So what we have to realize, we get so caught up in the direct effects, like, yeah, we give them screens and it keeps them quiet. We give them screens and it's the one thing I can dangle over their head to get them to do things. If you're giving them too much screens, especially for you parents who are still, for some reason, letting them take it behind closed doors, and letting your kid have the internet in their bedroom behind closed doors, which is the biggest no-no ever. I saw a very scary stat. I think it's like 80 something percent of teenagers now are on their phones till like 3, 4 a.m. Like, how are you at work if you go to bed at 4 a.m.? You're going to have a pretty crappy day at work, and you're going to eventually get a reputation for not being a very good worker. So the work that the amount of screens you give your kid in the afternoon and evening is definitely going to impact them the next day at school.
So good. I had 3 kids, and the last one was a little bit further than the other 2, so we had a lot of screen opportunities for learning, and we were not great at it. But every problem creates a solution, and so there's a great app called Glasswire, and you can see who is logged on at your house when they got on. And so my last kiddo graduated when I was young, in 2021. And even then, the pattern with teenagers, because they're smarter than we are, is they would come home and take a nap. And we think that's very normal. They're teenagers, they're tired. And they literally all get up at 1 a.m. because you're asleep, right? And so get Glasswire. They have other versions. You can see who logs on, and because they can get a burner phone for 25 bucks and log on to Michael's Wi-Fi next door. So you got
Hmm.
to be ahead of the next thing, because this is your child. This is your child, and they won't get this time back. The good news is our brains are amazing. People are amazing. They have capacity. When you stop something, even though it's hard, it can rebuild again, right? Your brain rebuilds again. And so that's exciting. But it is debilitating when I watch kids. I have a great office window in my neighborhood, and kids get off the bus. I mean, little kids. Like, hello, hello, hello. I'm walking. Like, they don't even have, like, because they're little babies, right? You wouldn't give them a cigarette. You wouldn't give them the keys to the car, but we've given them access to every piece of information and video and language in the entire world. And it's tragic. And we can stop it. We can turn it around, if we require it of them and ourselves.
That's the biggest thing. And, parents, we're modeling it. You're an adult, you can drive, you can drink, you can vote, you can join the army, you can do all these different things. Our kids can't do it. At the end of the day, we have stolen the exact things from childhood that actually build executive functioning skills, the most crucial set of skills. You need executive functioning skills to move out of your parents' house, get a job, keep a job, make friends, and keep friends. And the only way to build executive functioning skills, it's not by doing worksheets, it's not by doing lectures, it's not by sitting in the classroom, it is through relationships and experiences. Varied experiences, doing as many different things as possible, and meeting as many different people as possible. And we as adults, we give our kids the world. They don't get to choose their world. We give them a world. And we have given them a world where we have eliminated play, unstructured, outdoor, unsupervised play. Just like I said earlier, we're too scared to send our kids down the street. We're too scared to send them outside to play by themselves, but we'll give them open access to the internet. Make that make sense. Because all the crazy people that used to be outside committing crimes are online. And you all see it. You all see it in your feed of this happened to a kid on Roblox. This happened to a kid on Fortnite. This happened to a kid on Snapchat. But we still give them access to it. Because why? Because the thought of taking it away from them is terrifying because they're addicted. And we're going to deal with withdrawal behaviors when we remove them. So the only reason for all of you here right now, the only reason your child still has a phone and still has access to social media is fear. Let's be honest, because we're too scared to take it away. So we took away play. We also stole boredom. So the second we stole boredom is like going to the gym for your brain. When we're bored, we learn how to self-regulate. We learn how to be bored and figure things out and notice and do and be aware of our environment, be aware of our surroundings. We learn how to plan, prioritize, problem solve, and just entertain ourselves. Kids today can't do that because we stole boredom. And guess what? Executive functioning is a fancy term for your imagination. That's why there's no true standardized tests to measure executive functioning, because executive functioning is your ability to make mental movies and visualize what needs to be done and visualize yourself being successful through various tasks. So when we're bored, we use our imagination, and our imagination is our executive functions. What are the two academic tasks that kids with ADHD struggle with the most? Reading comprehension and written expression. Why? Because those require the most nonverbal working memory, visual imagery. You have to make mental movies while you read. You have to have your mental movie organized while you sit and type or write. So this is what it's all about. So we stole play, we stole boredom, and we definitely stole struggle. The amount of parents who save our kids from getting in trouble at school or getting that bad grade. We talk a lot about IEPs and 504s. How much have we over accommodated our kids, where we've given them too much, where they're getting too much leeway? We're taking away all accountability. Dr. Russell Barkley, the worldwide leader on ADHD and executive functioning, his famous quote, "If you want to see an ADHD child fail, put them in an environment with no consequences." And in how many ways have we created that for our kids where there's no consequences for their behavior? There's no consequences for how they treat mom. There's no consequences for the work they don't turn in. There's no consequences for them breaking the screen time rules. So we're creating a world where there's really no accountability.
Right. It made me think of a few years ago, I lived on the coast, and so we have these things called hurricanes. And
Yeah.
we have a generator now, but we didn't have electricity, air conditioning, or more devastating, the internet for 3 days. It was like 700 weeks. But you know what? We had puzzles and stuff to write and games and stuff that we were all these stuff that we were going to do, right? The plants got watered. We have all these other things got done because we're not distracted by that digital thing. And so it is completely doable. It's fixable. And we're not talking about if your child has an accommodation so they can have access. That's not what we're talking about. But if you pull up your child's phone, start with you, right? The hardest sermon to hear is the one you have to choke down. How many hours a day? The average, I think, Mike and I were talking about this. It's the average child is on their phone 6 hours a day. Well, I don't know why we're the average adult. You can add hours onto that. So if you're not going to model it, don't take it away. If you're not going to model it, don't take it away, right? And so there is balance, but it shouldn't be a reward, right?
No.
It's a pull on their brain and it's a pull on their attention, right? The stat is what 80% of the time that you're going to spend with your child happens before they're 18.
Yeah.
Before they're 18, right? And so do I love DoorDash? Yes. Do I love Amazon? Yes. But I love people. Like it's a belly to belly world if you're going to be successful in life. And the thing that we did to make it easier on the front end is going to make it harder on the back end. Still doable, right? Just like the thing we do hard on the front end, make it easier on the back end. So, if we let children run our house, they would all be 18 years old, 6 foot tall, full beard, and a bottle and a pull up. We don't do that because that's not good for them long term. That would not let them get
Exactly.
a job and all of those things. And so we just got to take it down to the studs and fix that. So Mike, you're telling us, the what and why to do, but the how is probably a longer game. So is that something that you provide education around to schools or parents, or we're just giving them the rah, you can do it?
No, this is exactly it. The practical tools and empowering parents, empowering students, empowering families is what my entire career mission is all about, what GrowNOW ADHD is all about. So, big picture wise, I'm always at the airport, always living out of a suitcase so I can hit as many different schools as possible. It's all about empowering those teachers because, just like I mentioned earlier, there's no true standardized test to measure executive functioning skills. And so much of our education has to do with testing. And because you can't measure executive functions, you can't measure someone's imagination. You can't measure someone's self-regulation skills, self-motivation skills. So it doesn't find our way into education. So if schools don't spend their PD days, spend their funding on people like me to come in, they're not going to have those tools. So it is my mission to get to as many schools as possible, train that staff, and not be one of those PD guys who shows up, trains them, and then ghosts them and never hears from them again. Exactly. Goodbye. I keep in touch with every single one of them, empower them, work with them, and I've had the privilege of working with some incredible teachers in school. So myself and some of my colleagues travel the country and do very, very in-depth, hands-on, practical trainings that these teachers can use the very next day. And in terms of the work that we do for coaching and for parent training, that's exactly what it is. It is one-to-one executive functioning, internal skills training for students of all ages, elementary, middle, high, college success program, young adult failure to launch program, homeschool program. So we work very closely with every individual family, never once taking a one-size-fits-all approach because no two ADHD kids are the same. And even, we work with many families that don't have a diagnosis either, just struggle with executive functions and struggle with independence. So we work directly with the students and we do very fully personalized parent training, working with the parents. And this is not a multi-month commitment of let's do one session per week for years and years. No, we're going to tell you the truth on day one of what you have to do with screens, how to fix your morning routine, how to fix the homework fight, how to make sure your child's having relationships, experiences, accountability, struggle, and a real childhood. It's real, evidence-based, factual information, not that pseudoscience you see on your parenting algorithm, which is all nonsense for likes, shares, and follows. Oh, that's not negative attention seeking. That's a connection seeking behavior. He just needs more hugs and kisses. No, it's negative attention seeking. And we can't be afraid to say that kids do that and kids emotionally manipulate their parents. Because guess what? Neurotypical kids do it too. ADHD kids just do it 100 times more.
Right. That's so good. So, um, if um, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, and I know you have a team and all of the things, how do they get a hold of you?
Yep, so they can go directly to my website, grownowADHD.com. I'll put it right here in the chat so everyone can have that. So just go directly to my website, grownowADHD.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram at grownowADHD, learn some of that information there. You can listen to the ADHD Parenting Podcast on Spotify and learn some great evidence information there from my partner, Ryan Wexelblatt, the ADHD dude, and gain some of that information there. Fill out the intake form on grownowADHD.com. Continue to follow Karen and I as we travel the world and do our world tour together. This is the start of many things. And everyone who joined this webinar tonight, you'll be able to say that you were a part. This is like going to the first ever Beatles show. You know what I mean? Like that was like I was at the first show the Beatles ever did. Well, guess what? All of you were at the first webinar for Mike and Karen. So the very first one. So yeah, check out my website, follow me on Instagram. And I would love to keep in touch with every single one of you guys.
Yeah, and so if you'll go back in, just put it so everybody can see it, but it's grownowADHD.com. Um, we're going to be doing monthly trainings for you because this conversation is limitless and endless. And, I believe it's just like an epic IEP, an epic kiddo, an epic adult, an epic teenager, an epic spouse. All of us need this, right? It's just easy, right? None of us have a thing. We used to have phone books, like if your kid was too short at the table. But if I said, go get a phone book and find out where Chili's is, I would probably melt to the ground. So we got to change this thing together. We're going to open it up for questions because that's the most important thing. And if we can keep those questions for Michael, not about, how amazing my hairdo is, because I think we already know that.
It is pretty amazing. Can you tell us more about it?
I can. It would be a long seminar, but I can tell you more about that. But give us your questions as you have them, because we want to make sure that I'm going to read those for you. If you'll just put them in the chat, and we'll go from there.
I do see one question here. Suggestions for an ADHD child who has to use text-to-speech or speech-to-text accommodation. Very simple. Give them a laptop with no internet access. Simple as that. Because we get so caught up in screens, when in reality, it's the internet. Phones did not become addictive until they got internet access. Video games did not become addictive until they got internet access. No kid was trashing their house and physically attacking their mom over Super Mario. It didn't happen until it was Fortnite, Roblox, and Minecraft. So that's the biggest thing. So get a computer with no internet access. They can still access Google Docs, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, all those different things. It doesn't have to have internet access, and they can still do speech to text.
So good. So Karen asks, can you specify differences between female and male as well? And this might be something that we do in our monthly trainings, but it's probably a long answer. We do meds and executive function training. The concern I had was her presentation was textbook, and female in the school fought very hard against testing. We did my child's IEP 2 days before school ended. How can I politely ask my child's new teacher what training she has on female specific and management?
Yeah, okay. So number one, this is a common question, male and female differences. At the end of the day, we have to remember no two ADHD kids are the same. It could be two males with hyperactive type, two males with inattentive type. No two are the same. They're all unique snowflakes and their own unique person. What we typically see with what I like to refer to as the 51%, the males tend to be more hyperactive, where it's noticeable with the eyes, and the girls tend to internalize, where it's often misdiagnosed as anxiety or OCD or some different things. So girls will have much more of the inattentive type where they're internalizing. This is where this whole concept of masking came about. So we have to be we have to look at all areas. So there are 3 separate zones to executive functioning. There's academic executive functioning, which is being a good student, getting your work done, turning your things in on time. That's part of it. But that's not even the place where the majority of ADHD symptoms are seen. People associate ADHD with school, executive functions with school. The most ADHD symptoms, the most executive dysfunction is actually seen in the home, towards parents, towards unconditional relationships. School is structured with conditional relationships. Home is unstructured with unconditional relationships. And the black and white rigid ADHD brain, boy or girl, is going to respond better to structure and condition than they do unstructured, unconditional. So who gets the worst of ADHD behaviors? Parents. Who gets the worst of ADHD behaviors? Mom. So we have to look at school, home, as well as social relationships. All of those areas are executive functions. And in terms of asking your teacher her training on executive functions, you can ask them straight up exactly the experiences they have and the PDs they've taken. And most likely the answer will be zero, because teachers don't have a lot of say in who the school brings in for professional development. So don't get upset with your teacher. Go to some of the higher ups of the school and advocate for them to bring in an executive functioning professional. It's not the teacher's fault that they never had a chance to sit in. They're stuck in their, learning. They're stuck in their ed tech seminars and their CPR trainings and their this and their that. They need more training, and you need to go to the higher ups for that.
Yeah, so good. So Michelle asks, what if a child can't read and write at 12? What do you think about using technology for him to communicate and to learn how to put down his thoughts? He has a genetic disorder.
That depends on many different things. Are we talking about an AAC device, like a communication device? This is the number one thing that blows my mind when I talk about eliminating screens. Someone inevitably will be like, oh, but my son with autism or chromosomal disorder needs AAC. That's not a screen. Like, let's be honest. If anyone out there is advocating to take an AAC device away from a child, that might be the most inhumane, evil thing in the world. And we're not taking away a child's voice. So when we talk about screen time, we're talking about open access to the internet and entertainment. A communication device is a communication device. That's their voice. So if they need that to communicate, to build relationships, participate in class, that's fantastic. If they're 12 years old and they're not reading and writing, then we need to figure out what are the reading goals? What's the reading program? What's the reading curriculum? What kind of reading and writing intensives are they getting? Because we need to catch up here, because this is going to snowball into a much bigger problem in high school when 90% of the curriculum is literacy based. So that needs to be the core focus right now. The reading and writing skills need to be the core focus.
So good. And you guys, just like legislation is what moves actions at the end game, right? And so all of us are impassioned parents, guardians, grandparents. Get a group of your friends and go down and ask and require of your leadership, your elected officials, to take this junk out of teaching. And if we're going to pass a bill that says kids can't have cell phones, there was a reason, right? But if you don't have cell phones, but you're just piping the internet in, it's not working. So go to your leadership and do that. So Pam asks, there are other forms of screen times. How do we get the teachers and the schools not to use videos, especially Coco Melon in class today? What are our rights as parents, grandparents to eliminate them from classrooms?
Oh God, exactly what Coco Melon in the classroom? What are we doing? Well, that is just literally waving the white flag. This is a bunch of kids. And you've already done the hard part and gotten them all in the same room together. Giving kids free time. Like, let's think back of what it was like when we were kids. We would play the 7-Up game, or we would just have free time and talk to each other. This is the sad part about screens at school, is when kids are left to their own devices, work is done, they're just allowed to surf the web. I've even heard of some schools having a bring your own device day. And the kids can just bring any device from home and they're just on it in the hallways. I've been to so many schools where kids are just on screens in the hallways. The hallways were some of the most motivating parts of school. Let's be honest. Kids care more about how many friends they have, their reputation, their popularity, more than their grades. And during all free time, we're just giving them access to the internet. So once again, you have to speak up. Give the kids free time. There are schools now that are cutting all field trips. I work with one really wealthy school district that spent millions of taxpayer dollars to build this outdoor arboretum butterfly garden, and they won't even take the kids out there because they're afraid a kid might trip or fall and then sue the school, and they'd rather just have them inside quiet on screens. We have to speak up here. We have to advocate for our kids. That's you. These are your taxpayer dollars at work. Look back on your educational journey from kindergarten to 12th grade. You remember the field trips. You remember the recess. You remember the hallways. You remember the cafeteria. Our kids aren't having those experiences. During all free time, they're on these devices. Coco Melon at school should be outlawed. All of this. Your kid is not having experiences. How many kids are graduating high school, standing on graduation day, holding the diploma in their hand, and looking back on the past 12 years and saying, I have no memories. I never did anything on my own. And then we're sending them off to college, sink or swim. And I'm sorry, moms, you can't move into the dorm with your kid. They're not going to let you do that. And America now leads the world in first semester college dropouts. They had the grades, but they don't have the skills to be successful because we did not give them the experiences to develop these skills.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I love about Mike, he talks about, which I do, we talked about uncomfortable truths in a way that people keep listening. We have to have the conversation. And then we have to change. Like, we have to stop being whiners. And we got to fix this. This is fixable. This is absolutely fixable. This is not a terminal disease. This is not, poison in our water system. But we can fix this while we do the hard thing and model that. Jessica says, what is practical to ask for in a 504 to help kids with transitions in school, / being overly silly, besides the typical preferential cheating, extended time on tests? So Jessica, let me just answer that. If you need extended time all the time, we got the wrong product, right? You giving me extended time to put together a transmission is not a benefit. I'm an adult. I didn't get any extended time this week. Did y'all get extended time? I did not get extended time. And so we're doing things that are handicapping children instead of teaching them a skill. So just like Mike says for ADHD, we have one job in special education, and that is to teach them skills to self-manage their disability. Extra time is that's then you're not in somewhere else. And so I don't let my kiddos have that. An accommodation is only used if without this accommodation, we know he could not be successful. So we're just giving him more time, get a better grade, and then try a little harder, and then come back and retest. That is not real world. We have got to teach kids. We're so busy graduating them, we have forgotten how to educate them. And so we have to stand up and say we want something different and we want it right now. So
that right there is the special education boss, ladies and gentlemen. That was beautiful. That is exactly verbatim the exact same answer I would have given that. Like it's these copy and pasted accommodations that parents learn on parent Facebook groups. Make sure you roll up your sleeves and ask for extended time. Look at Dr. Russell Barkley's explanation of extended time. Extended time actually backfires for ADHD kids and increases their anxiety and it hurts them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all get extended time. We get a speeding ticket, don't we? When do we do that driver's ed? Most of us do it within 36 hours of the day. So if you just said you have 3 days to do this, we go get it done. Any of us, right? And so more time to do something that you're not favoring or good at, not a benefit. What if both parents who never have been together don't agree on treatment at each household?
Oh, this is a big one. This is a big one. I see this all the time. Through GrowNOW, we do our parent training. And unfortunately, when you have an ADHD child, it greatly increases your chances of a divorce. And what I tend to see is when parents are separate, one parent decides to be the cool parent and allow for unlimited screens. Oh, mom likes to, I'm just giving an example here. I've seen it on both sides, mom and dad. Oh, mom is very strict. She doesn't let you have screen time. When you come to my house, you can have all the screens you want. That right there is a very serious problem. And you may think you're the cool parent. You may think that you're helping repair the relationship with your kid. Your kids are going to grow up one day and be thankful for the strict parent and be upset with the parent who allowed for unlimited access. That is a very serious problem. You may be divorced, you may be separate, it could be as messy as possible, but you still have a responsibility to do what's best for your kids. And that those are your ex-partner's kids too. So you need to be on the same page around screens. This is why parent training is crucial. We cannot have kids have vastly different experiences in two separate households. That really messes with their psyche big time.
And I'm just really simple. So let's just break it down. If I'm married, and I am, and I said, listen, you did great at work today. Now you can have more screen time. How does that build a relationship with me and my husband? Or it doesn't. It builds a relationship with a screen, right? And so, no parents are ever going to parent the same. But whatever parent you are, and it's good for your child, stick to it. They will appreciate that later. It's not about whether they say that they like it now. But that is one of the oldest things in the book, right? How do we say no to homework in the school? I'll tell you, Emily, no, no. Yeah, Billy will not be doing homework. It is not an emotional or academic benefit for him after the instructional day. Let's work together to see how to remedy that. Just say no. There is no state in America that requires homework. You know what? We do homework. We drink a pot of coffee at night because we're adults and we have a mortgage to pay. Let them come home and let the stink blow off of them. Like my mama said during Watergate, it's going to be a no. It's Karen. Excited about 26-20 school year, 27 school year. Go Bobcats. Billy won't be participating in the homework option. Just want to let you know that up front. If you have any more questions, let me know. It's a
There you
homework
go.
option. So
Yeah.
we're not doing that.
And there's a great book that you can share with the school called The Homework Myth. It's my second favorite book after the Epic IEP. It's a fantastic book. Share that with your school, and you'll learn there's very little correlation between homework completion and actual grade and information retention. And all of you got to be honest with yourselves. Is this homework really teaching my kids, or is it seeing how good is my child at using Google? How good is my child at using AI? Because that's all they're doing. It's busy work at home to test how good they are at Google.
Yeah. I would just say they have to come home every day and scrub our baseboards and, pick vegetables. So they don't have time for that. You'd be surprised when you actually say no and mean it. People go, okay, we'll respect you and your family enough to do what's right for your kiddos. Alan says, can you explain the correlation between ADHD and dyslexia and how they tie together? So Alan is one of my ridiculously amazing partner advocates. And I, for the last 30 years, it would be very rare with comprehensive evaluations. You don't always get those, that those two little buttercups don't run down the field together. So do you see that, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. So ADHD is rarely ever by itself. It's typically comorbid or, with something else. But ADHD is always sort of that foundational thing. ADHD is executive function, the foundation of all learning, the foundation of all skills. So yes, we need a comprehensive diagnosis to really see everything that's going on here. With ADHD is a disorder of nonverbal and verbal working memory. The two systems are weakened and disconnected, which is going to affect their reading comprehension and their written expression and their ability to develop literacy skills on target. Dyslexia can be so much different in terms of their ability to code and the lexical, needs of being literacy based. So you are going to need, so they are, very similar in so many ways, but we do need to dive a little deeper to really parse what are the foundational deficits here for their literacy needs.
And if you are listening to this, one of my dear friends, Sarah Bartley, is ridiculously amazing. Those are the only friends I have. I got rid of the other ones. And she has an amazing reading team in St. Louis. And she does, we will have her agency and her educators do compensatory time, whether it's a state complaint, a federal complaint, whether you live in the Kodiak Islands or Miami. So I can't think of her new business because it just had a new name, but she is the best. So you can get real reading and dyslexia intervention for your kiddo at home. That would be really life-changing. So shoot me an email to office@specialeducationacademy.com and I'll get you Sarah's information and her team in St. Louis. Shane said, what are some recommended accommodations for a high school freshman 504? So, I'm allergic to the 504. It was never supposed to be something in schools. Again, this is something that made it easier for us Again, it's an accommodation with, if they don't have it, they will not succeed. That should be the opening conversation for an IEP, any component, not just, oh yeah, that looks good. This is not macaroni and cheese, potato salad. You want bread?
Yeah.
You want French
Yeah.
fries? They
Yeah.
have to have it. And so without knowing the unique circumstances of your child, we wouldn't be able to give you that. But I think that most 504s should have the same thing that IEP did, and a big pair of scissors. And let kiddos show you their capacity. They have it. They have it. Not, and it's not about, we want to give them rigor. We don't want to overwhelm them, but we want to give them rigor, because you know what? Life demands it. Nobody's going to come along and bring a little basket for Johnny or Susie. And we do it to valedictorians and kids with IEPs or 504s as well. So that would be my answer for that. Mike, did you have a different answer?
No, that's the exact answer. Too much of the pseudoscience that you're all getting on your parenting algorithms is teaching you to lower the bar for your ADHD
It's
child.
hard for them. It's so hard.
Yeah, we're not lowering the bar, we're raising the bar. No, like, who needs to hear, I believe in you, you can do hard things more than an ADHD child? And parents have been trained when you go to a school and the school says, hey, we actually want to remove some of these accommodations. Parents are being taught to fight back and get as many accommodations as possible. And we've seen this over the past 20 years. I've seen 504 plans go from 5 pages to 50 pages, every single thing in the book. We have to start to think about accommodations as fading. If you really need that accommodation, set an end time. Make sure it fades after a month, after 2 months. I've seen too many 504s where it's the exact same thing from kindergarten to 12th grade. So you have to remember, there's not a single college in this country that will do what a 504 can.
Never. So good. So, hey, Mike, I'm a speech professional, and I'm getting confused about my child's school. Can you provide a simplified explanation of ASD versus ADHD? We know our child is presenting with ADHD, but the school district is pushing for a biased ASD diagnosis. So I'm going to jump in, Beverly, since you didn't ask me. So I'm addicted to the law, and I'm addicted to every medical legal book there is. So there's this great book called the DSM-5, now the DSM-5 TR. First of all, I want you to print out those characteristics. They're characteristics of autism and characteristics of ADHD, because sometimes as a mama, we get stuck to the first eligibility that we agreed with, right? And so it is about, how does the characteristic of that disability and or the comorbidity show up during the instructional day? Because based upon how that characteristic shows up, addresses what skill I'm teaching. So I don't, it's not about eligibility for me. It's about intervention, right? We can say he's ASD all day long, and he is, but you gave him an ADHD intervention. You gave him an ED intervention. You gave him a reading intervention. We're drilling in the wrong place. So I would want you, like I ask all my parents, for show up with the information. Show me those characteristics, right? And characteristics of ADHD and ASD and ED all overlap, but they really are different. And I'm going to say one more thing on this. When I have a client that has a student with ASD, I will say to them, Cindy, tell me what his ASD looks like in public. So I'm at a restaurant, I'm 4 tables over. If you have autism and it's greatly impacting you at school, I can see that over time, just watching from a distance, right? And so I think that we get, and I don't know either way, but I want to make sure whatever that is right now, that we are serving that right now and teaching a strategy and skill.
Perfectly said.
So, but do you want to answer, since it was your question?
Yeah, that was exactly it. There's if you have a Venn diagram, ADHD and autism, yeah, a lot of overlap, but they're also incredibly different. So autism is going to have more global delays in speech and language and sensory, all these different things. With ADHD, it's going to be more around self-regulation and self-motivation towards non-preferred tasks. With both, you have to look at the screen addictions and different things like that, but it's going to be much more finite towards those specific executive functions. Towards ASD, we're going to have to look at so many other areas of sensory, speech and language, and of course, much greater difficulty with social relationships.
So good. So Samantha asked, any advice for kindergarten age kiddo with ADHD and parents with ADHD with trying to work through behavior? So Samantha, I feel like you were talking to us earlier today, because that is actually our next training next month, because that's it. At the end of the day, history books, algebra, whoever needed that, If we don't know about the behavior, what's the cause of that, then we don't know how to address it. And so that's going to be something that's going to be part of our next training. But, Mike, you want to share with them what they could do? Because that's not unusual, right, for the parent to have ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So the number one rule of all of ADHD parent training is use 90% less language. When you have an ADHD child, chances are you're probably talking too much. You're talking, prompting, monologue, lecture. Get away. Remember, all ADHD behaviors need an audience. So ADHD at baseline is the instant gratification brain. So number one, it's where are the screens? Give me the screens. If they are available to me, I want them. If they're not available, they're looking for conflict. They're looking for arguing, negotiating. They're looking for the stage, the spotlight, the microphone, and they want to see mom and dad incredibly dysregulated because that's giving them a lot of dopamine. So you have to remove the audience, unplug the power source, which is you. We want our kids to develop self-regulation. They have to be by themselves a little bit. Remove the audience, get away, and come back when they are ready. Let's teach them ready, Mike, not ready, Mike. When they're not ready, I have to get away and give you time to get ready. When I see you're ready again, then I can help you. So remove the audience.
yeah, and I'm sort of piggyback on that. As adults, if, Mike called me and I was upset and I just said, we had an appointment. I just said, I just can't do this today. He would say, no problem. He wouldn't I don't think you understand. We've got to do. He would I just can't do this. Like, we get that as adults. We don't let kids have that. Nope. It's 6 o'clock. It's time for you to do the dishes. And we just go, expectation. And if we want our kids to have grace, we have to give it to them and model it. And the best way to stop an argument is to stop talking. Right. I'm in meetings sometimes where people don't agree with me. Like, isn't that weird? And so when somebody says something baiting or triggering or impassioned, I will just say, which is great skills, Chris Voss, Black Swan skills, it seems like you have a reason for saying that. Write that down. It seems like you have a reason for saying that. Seems like you have a reason for feeling that. Seems like you have a reason for doing that. And then shut your mouth and let them tell you. Because guess we all are horrible assumers. We all assume that we know it. We don't know anything. Your husband, you've lived with her 40 years. We assume and we're always wrong. It seems like you have a reason for saying that. And then stop talking. Just stop talking. But you can't argue with somebody who's not arguing with you anymore. That's really a sermon that I need to remember. So Samantha said, what if the kiddo seems to actually learn better from an educational screen program versus a traditional book? I'm going to answer you that. This is what they know. It does seem like that, right? So it seems like I eat vegetables because I buy them. I don't. Reading is difficult. Stilling your body and reading is hard. And we haven't been teaching it that well. So that's why it seems easy. Number two, we learned this right at the pandemic. My kiddos with ASD and ADHD and all that, they were like, Miss Karen, I am done at 9:30. You know why? Because the ADHD interrupters are not in the living room. And so while it seems good now, I don't think that they can live on a screen for the next 50, 80 years.
Beautiful. That's exactly it. I've never met a single student that learned better on a screen than compared to paper and pen or lectures in the classroom. It seems that way. It may bring less behaviors, but at the end of the day, all of these game-based curriculums and all those different things, all they're doing is making the child better at the game, not the content.
Yeah. So Josephine asks, what systems should schools have in place so ADHD support does not depend on whether an individual teacher happens to understand executive functioning particularly well? So I'm just respond to this also. They don't. When I first got into special education 117 years ago, I thought these people know everything about special education law. They've had a meeting and they're not doing it and it's on purpose. They don't know. They don't know. Do you know why people take my trainings and my training? Because they weren't trained in it. So we've got to switch from why doesn't the teacher understand when most of us couldn't explain what executive function was for $10, right? It is not the teacher's responsibility to know about executive functioning. It's the teacher's responsibility to follow the initial initiatives and directives of leadership. So if you want that to change, even a possibility of trickle down, then you demand your trustees, the school board who've been entrusted with your children, to do what's right to serve people on the front line are teachers raising our kiddos.
100%.
So I'm a para, and a lot of our teachers use YouTube music for transition. And so, and while I don't think there's anything wrong with music for transition, right? We have music therapy.
Yeah, sure.
Great related service. It can't be a replacement. So we've moved from, this thing is, it's easier for us. It reduces behaviors. Yeah, because there's no demand. There's no educational demand. So just like Mike was saying, fade that. Maybe you fade it for 10 seconds. This week we're going to do it 10 seconds less. And then next week we do it for 10 seconds less. It doesn't have to be, I would be very upset if you stopped giving me hairspray and shiny lipstick every day. But we could fade it, right? You can fade anything, right? And so kids have unbelievable capacity, but we are their leaders and they are following us. Yeah. The great Desiree says they don't want them talking. Teachers are doing their work and they want them quiet, unfortunately.
Yeah. So then they don't want them having friends either. So that's exactly it. So these are social beings. Human beings are social animals. Food, water, shelter, relationships. You don't want kids talking at school. You don't want them to have social skills. You don't want them to have friends. You want them to be angry, isolated, and depressed.
Yeah, so good. The great Tammy says, Texas special educator here. Thank you to all the educators. We love you. We have no idea why you take all of our children every day, but what's the main question? Do you want dark?
There you go.
Chocolate? We'll get it for you. Free time in her classroom is spent playing cards or working on the puzzle I have in the back of the classroom. No cell phones allowed. That is not a problem. Thank you so much for saying that. So I have a perfect grandson. I have two now. And last year he learned chess. You know why? Because my husband and my father-in-law taught it to him. You know what he's learning for our cruise this year? Mexican train. And he said, you know what, Gigi? I'm going to crush all of you. They practice every night. Kids are learners. They're little sponges. Learn them something that doesn't require a plug. Like there are things in life that don't have a seaport. Did you know that? Did you know that? And so that's so good, Tammy. That is so, so good. What about the accommodation of providing kids with class notes? There's nothing wrong with that. I provide notes to myself all day long. That's not the internet. And I think that's a great accommodation if that serves the student, if they're being provided to them at the beginning of instruction. If it's not instruction and we're not giving it to them unless they've made an effort to take notes. So we need to stop, being a little policeman and start, focusing on the promise instead of the problem, and kids will step up. They will, because we all can do that. We do executive function training through our medical team. Any thoughts on how school can help? This is a broad question.
Yeah, so the medical team's getting executive functioning training, sure. The school can help by getting the entire staff trained. Bringing in some outside experts, bringing in some national specialists. Doesn't have to be me, doesn't have to be GrowNOW. There's some fantastic people out there. Bring in Ryan Wexelblad, bring in Sarah Ward, bring in some incredible people. We need to bring people in because the most up-to-date research is the most up-to-date research. We can't keep saying ADHD is an attention disorder. We can't keep saying executive functioning is time management and organization. All of this is outdated information.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. Let's see. It says my child has been diagnosed with learning disability and writing. The only accommodation they offer is talk to text. Is that acceptable? I want to be able to write. No. First of all, Susan, being lied to is unacceptable.
Yep.
We have a team of full-time advocates that advocate nationally, and I kind of do. We have this very unholy alliance with the school, and we believe them. They're not always believable when it talks about our kids that struggle in an educational setting. So I would say, can you provide me that information in writing? If your child has been diagnosed with a learning disability in writing, that's a special ed eligibility, and he would have to have an IEP with services and supports and skills to teach him strategies to self-manage his disability. So Susan, you just say, Big Mouth Karen said that's not true, and she'll be parking and pulling in just a minute, but let us help you with that. And we have advocates that do consultation and prep all the way to representation. So office at specialeducationacademy.com. Let's see. Extended time gives those with executive functioning issues permission to procrastinate. Is that true?
I think that's a very specific way to put it. I think it's more of, ADHD kids are missing their internal clock. That's why they're time blind, as they say. So giving them extended time is making them more time blind. So we're making the disability worse. I'm not going to say it gives them permission to procrastinate. ADHD kids don't procrastinate on purpose. They can't self-regulate because they're missing their internal clock. That's the problem.
Yeah, I had a kiddo that I was serving recently, and the parent wanted her to be in the meeting. When I think about that, that's not your problem. And so I said to her, I said, so, hey, kiddo, so tell me what it looks like during the day when you get extended time. And she said the thing that I like, the truth. And the teachers were like, just, oh, yeah, if I'm late, then I'll just go back the next morning and I talk to the registrar and she'll let me use her office. And then sometimes I just, if I don't want to go to art, what, what, so if your child's getting extended time, ask them what that looks like. Make sure that you're
Yeah.
getting that. My my ADHD son was in 5th grade. Wouldn't do an IEP because my son was making good grades. So they didn't qualify. Good news, love. The federal law doesn't say a single thing about grades or academics. The law says, is there an educational impact? And half of my clients have kids with ADHD. They don't have a math deficit. They have executive function deficits, right? They have attention, sustaining, completion. And so don't believe grades. And I'm just going to tell you as we sit here, your kid could be the valedictorian. I don't know if that's true. Everybody in America is on the AB honor roll. I couldn't get a kid to fail if I begged them. So,
Yeah.
and that is something that is forced on teachers. Let's see. Somebody said extended time becomes a pile of gotta do. That's good.
Sure.
Gotta do.
Sure. Yeah.
My son with ADHD has 23 accommodations on his initial IEP. How do we know which accommodation he actually needs? It seems like lots of them are just generic based in diagnosis. So I would never have a document with more than 9 accommodations. And the meeting say, tell me what that looks like. Tell me what that looks like.
Yeah.
And do they use it every day? Do they require it? Like I don't have glasses just on Tuesday when I require it, right? Let the team talk through it and then just go, he doesn't need that. He doesn't need that. He doesn't need that. Lean it out so we can see if the skill that we taught is sticking. Is there that GMF? Is there generalization, maintenance, fluency? But 99% of the accommodations are never delivered. So the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which is where accommodations came from, are for anybody that has a disability, and that entity cannot discriminate against them and deny their known and needed accommodations. It was never meant to be 23 accommodations. That's not an accommodation. No teacher in America stands up and gives Billy 23 accommodations and says, morning. So get in there and lean those out. So how do you approach the district if the focus in IEP is one of the disabilities, intellectual, for example, and ADHD is not addressed, rather because all deficits are said to be pertinent to the intellectual disability? That's a good question. I'm gonna let Mike handle that.
How to approach if the focus of the IEP is one of the disabilities, intellectual, for example. So it's really, what is the one that causes the greatest educational need? What is the one that is destroying their access to the curriculum and harming their ability to access the curriculum and be successful there? There's all these different labels, whether it's emotional disturbance and intellectual, this, that, whatever. Does the school even understand that ADHD is an emotional disorder? ADHD is emotions. It's not attention. It's emotional regulation. So what exactly is impacting their ability to be successful at school? Sometimes it's not getting so caught up in labels. It's making sure the goals, the services, and the accommodations are correct for that unique individual. There's all these different categories and labels and all these different things we get a little too caught up in. At the end of the day, is this IEP serving the child based on them as a unique person?
So good. Angela says, and this is really a good question, how should ADHD strategies like limiting and removing screen time be adapted for a child who has ADHD, autism, and Down syndrome with significant developmental delays? Are the same recommendations appropriate, or does the purpose of the screen time need to be considered differently? So can I just address that? Of all of our kiddos that need less screen time, those that have comorbidities and a higher impact of their disability, they actually need the rub of real life. They need as much literal belly to belly that they can get, right? And so belly to belly is hard, right? And even when COVID started, I was like, for after a while, I was like, I didn't want to go out. So they're in a world that you're not in. When you are on a screen, you are in a world that you're not in, right? And so I would just implore you, if you have a child and they need interaction with you, even if they're nonverbal, they don't have use of their arms and legs, they want to be with people. They want to interact with people. 93% of communication is unspoken. Have you ever been on a plane and watched a movie and seen somebody like on the movie and you can figure out the whole movie? You didn't need those earbuds. Remember those 100 years ago? We know exactly what happened. We don't need the sound. We need human connection in all ways. So, Michael,
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. That's exactly it. All of those things existed before screens existed. And one of the biggest lies spread online is that screens are regulating to the neurodiverse brain. There's a lot of influencers out there posing as experts saying screens are regulating to neurodiverse kids, and that's absolute nonsense. If anything, it dysregulates them more.
At least said make sure the kids are not required to download the notes themselves. I'm like, yeah, we'll take the notes like in the 70s where you print them out and hand them to the child. Perfect. Comment and question, it blows my mind that so many schools are not allowing phones in school, but forcing iPads for testing and even for e-learning. How do you address that? If a school is using recess as a punishment for a child with ADHD, how do you address that? So I'm going to do the bottom part. It's illegal. It's
Yes.
just, I like less words. As somebody said the other day, make your words like brandy on ice. Make it neat. Stop adding words when you ask for things and require things. So it's against the law for you to keep a child in recess and from recess to do work. Why? It's a state requirement that we have 150 minutes of physical movement. It's actually a statute. So you don't know your rights and you're leaning on the school to tell you the truth. And you're arguing with somebody that's not telling you the truth. Go to your SEA, go to your DOE, and ask them, is it legal for you to keep my child in for recess? And so I think recess is 5 to 12-year-olds. What adult wants these kids to stay in the classroom during recess? Like, don't you need a recess from the children? So we're not, I just said we're not doing that. We are not doing that.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And so kind of Samantha, what you talked about, no phones for kids, but e-learning. You got to get down to your state education agency. You got to go live. You got to make a real group on Facebook that says, we got to turn this around and save our kids. Something. Be the voice that they don't have. Will participants receive a link for the recording? I need to log off, and I don't want to miss the end of this seminar. Absolutely. You guys will all get it in your inbox. How can we use the lesson, the use of game-based apps and plans of, it's a lie, Desiree, who I love. It's a lie. You're believing the lie and you're arguing with the lie. Why would you do that? Like if somebody came to your house and said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I live here and you have to go. What would you do? Would you argue with them or would you close the door? So this is what I say. We're not doing that. My child's not doing that.
Yep.
If that's what you're doing, then please send them to the principal's office. We are not doing that. And then become the we. You're not alone. 99% of parents feel exactly the way you do. Okay. Okay, so I think that is all of the questions, and you guys have been so generous with spending your evening with us. And so Mike and I are going to be training you guys up until all the training's done. So that should take like 3 or 4 weeks, and then everybody will have it. So again, just like the training that I do, as we all know correct, then we can make better correct decisions. So we got to do 2 things, right? We got to just say this is a lie, right? And then we all have to say, this is how to fix that, right? So we have to first have a funeral over what is not true, right? And then we got to turn it around, right? And we're going to help you do that in any way possible. And so Elizabeth said she asked 2 questions. Can you type those in again for me, Elizabeth? I'm 117 years old, so I apologize. Oh, look at her. I have a 4-year-old that I suspect has ADHD and has a lot of screaming behaviors and doesn't really take anything seriously. He's currently not in school. He attends a child developmental center that has screen time 1 to 2 hours a day. He has had a screen detox, but it hasn't helped.
It hasn't helped.
Okay.
What next steps? So the biggest problem parents make with screen detox is they give them back once they see improvement, or they give them back once things become too stressful. Your son is 4 years old, still a baby. 1 to 2 hours a day, too much. So all of that needs to get removed. You need to remove those 1 to 2 hours. It needs to go back to 0 permanently. Don't remove the screens and then end up giving them back at some point. Those need to be removed. He's 4 years old. Those need to be removed for, over a year, for a significant period of time. Make sure they're
He
getting
meant to say it was a decade.
for a
You
decade.
want to remove the screen time for a
Yeah,
decade.
for a decade. For a
Yeah.
decade.
You know what
Correct.
you have in your
Yes.
house? Everybody
Yes.
has an attic. An
Yeah.
attic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody gave my grandchild an iPad 2 years ago. You know where it is? In the attic. Yeah. So we have so many more questions coming in. You guys, when you get the link, we're also going to give you the update on our fall schedule with the great Mike, because he is ridiculously amazing. So thank you for being on here and sharing all of your wisdom. Our heart is the same: to equip people, to equip people, to equip people. And so we are going to do that. And then when we have scheduled out, we'll have this generous Q&A time. But we want to give you strategies to use tomorrow. So a lot of us get stuck on why. Why doesn't really matter. What matters is what's next. And you have the ability to change outcomes for your kiddos as you do better things for them. So as I always say, we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. Mike, thank you for being on, and thank you for coming back.
Absolutely. Karen, you are the best. I'm so excited to have an amazing year with you. You and I are gonna light the world on fire, and I'm so
light the world on fire.
That's
so we're
right.
Gonna, send you guys links of how to get his greatness as well, because there's so many things. It's so rare that parents can actually get training from an expert. So we're excited about that, and school districts, and we will see you guys at the next training.
See you guys.
Hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change, we're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody.